بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما وعملا يا رب العالمين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Go on, brothers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's better. The fasting is not that hard. It's okay. Alhamdulillah. Allah makes it easy. Okay, so everyone got paper and pen? First thing I want you to write is your name, like you did when you were in school. Okay, so inshallah today is going to be a crash course on the fiqh of zakah. Normally these sessions, I do it over 4 lessons, 4 sessions. Yeah? So normally I teach the fiqh of zakah in 4 sessions, but we're just going to do it in 1 session inshallah. Obviously, there are going to be a lot of questions that you have in mind with regards to zakah. They're usually very common questions. So the likelihood of me answering these questions as we are studying, inshallah, is quite high. But there will be a Q&A at the end, inshallah, where you'll be given an opportunity to ask your questions, inshallah. And if I can answer, I will answer it, inshallah. If I cannot answer, I will say, La adri, I don't know. And I will get back to you, inshallah. Huh? Inshallah. طيب. The first thing that we talk about in any topic, those of you who came to my fiqh of fasting session before Ramadan, you will know this, that the first thing that we talk about in any topic, anyone know? What's the first thing that we talk about when we start any topic? Yes, at the back. Praising Allah Azza wa Jal. Yes. Is it possible to switch this mic off? MashaAllah, the new mics, I don't know how to function now. Is this one over here? Side. طيب, so we talk about the definition of zakah. So write this as your, no, that's the main thing, Sheikh. Right, so the first thing we talk about is the definition of zakah. So this is the subtitle that I want everyone to put, definition of zakah. Everyone write this down, definition of zakah. Now, usually there are always 2 types of definitions. You have التعريف اللغوي. Yeah, التعريف اللغوي. What they say in Arabic is التعريف اللغوي, which is a linguistic definition. So that's the first thing that we're going to look at. The linguistic definition of zakah. Meaning, what does the word zakah mean from an Arabic language perspective? Yeah. So the word zakah, tazkiyah, comes from the word tazkiyah. Anyone know what tazkiyah means? To purify. Yeah, to purify. That's one meaning, one linguistic definition of zakah. And the other linguistic meaning of zakah is to grow. Yeah, for something to grow. Okay, so both have, these are both the linguistic meanings of zakah. So for example, Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran, He says, فَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ هُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِمَنِ اتَّقَى. Yeah, فَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ هُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِمَنِ اتَّقَى. Don't claim purity for yourselves, because Allah knows who is the most conscious of you. So this is an example of how Allah Azza wa Jal, He uses the word zakah in the linguistic sense. Don't purify yourself. Yeah, don't claim purity for yourself. طيب. The technical definition, what we know in Arabic as التعريف الاصطلاحي. التعريف الاصطلاحي. The technical definition, the Shar'i definition, meaning what does zakah mean in terms of the Sharia? Yeah, what does zakah mean in terms of the Sharia? This is the definition that I want everyone to write down, inshallah. To give ownership of a specific type of wealth to one who deserves it. To give ownership of a specific type of wealth to one who deserves it. I think we'll just use this mic, inshallah. Ahsan. Switch this one off. Right, so to give ownership of one type of wealth, a specific type of wealth, to those who deserve it, it's okay, by fulfilling its conditions. Yeah, by fulfilling its conditions. Everyone got that? Yeah, so to give ownership of a specific type of wealth to one who deserves it by fulfilling its specific conditions. Now remember this definition. Okay, make sure you write it down. We're going to refer to this throughout the session, inshallah. So this is the definition of zakah. This is how we define zakah. Moving on, the next thing that the scholars talk about, again in any topic, whether it is fasting, salah, doesn't matter, is the legislation of zakah. The legislation of zakah. We can say in simple words, the hukam, the ruling of zakah. What is the ruling of zakah? Is it mustahab? Is it sunnah? Is it nafal? What is it? It is fard. Yeah, it is fard. Now the scholars, I mentioned this in the fiqh of fasting as well, that the scholars say that there are two types of fard. Does anyone remember? What are the two types of fard? Fardul ayn and fard kifaya. What's fardul ayn? Everyone has to give it individual obligation. Fard kifaya is a communal obligation. طيب. So the legislation of zakah, the hukm of zakah is that it is fardul ayn. Okay, it is fardul ayn. Individual obligation, meaning every single person has to give zakah if they meet the conditions of zakah, if they meet the criteria of zakah. As we know, zakah is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Yes, zakah is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, which shows its importance. Furthermore, when we study the Quran, how many times do we recite وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ? Yeah, the establish prayer and give zakah. Establish prayer, give zakah. So all of these verses that say أَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ is a proof that zakah is fardul ayn, an individual obligation. Now, when it comes to the hikmah of zakah, the wisdom of zakah, what is the wisdom of zakah? The wisdom of zakah is to bring a balance in society. To bring a balance in society. So it's like a mechanism that Allah Azza wa Jal has put in the Sharia so that people must spend in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal at least once a year. We know that sadaqah is optional. You don't have to give sadaqah if you don't want to. But we are encouraged to give sadaqah. But zakah, you must give zakah. So it's like a mechanism that Allah Azza wa Jal has put in place so that every Muslim must spend in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the objective is to bring about a balance when it comes to money in the society, right? So that there is a level of justice when it comes to money. طيب? And that's why when we study the ahadith and the verses of Quran, for those who do not pay their zakah, those who do not spend in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal, there's a great, subhanallah, punishment. Listen to this verse. I mentioned this in the Fajr talk today. وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ وَالْفِضَّةَ وَلَا يُنْفِقُونَها فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَبَشِّرْهُمْ بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. Allah says that those who store their wealth, they store gold and silver, they hoard their wealth, and they do not spend it in the path of Allah, Allah says, give them glad tidings of a painful punishment. Give them glad tidings of a painful punishment. Right? Now, normally the word bashara means to give good news. Now tell me, is a painful punishment good news or bad news? Bad news. So why is Allah saying give them good news? This is like a style of the Quran. Yeah, it's like sarcasm basically. That you want good news, I'll tell you what good news you're going to get. You're going to get painful punishment in the akhirah. So this is a very powerful way of explaining that they're going to get a painful punishment in the akhirah. Furthermore, we have a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من آتاه الله مالا فلم يؤد زكاته مثل له يوم القيامة شجاعا أقرع له زبيبتان يطوقه يوم القيامة ثم يأخذ بلهزمتيه يعني شدقيه ثم يقول أنا مالك أنا كنزك ثم تلا لا يحسبن الذين يبخلون بما آتاهم الله من فضله هو خيرا لهم بل هو شر لهم سيطوقون ما بخلوا به يوم القيامة ولله ميراث السماوات والأرض. This hadith, very, very powerful hadith, is recorded in Sahih al-Bukhari on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, whosoever Allah gives wealth and he does not pay its zakah, meaning that he is ignorant of his zakah, he doesn't pay attention to his zakah. This also includes those people who do not calculate their zakah correctly because of lack of knowledge. Because knowing about the fiqh of zakah is part of the fard that every Muslim should know. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. Seeking knowledge is compulsory upon every Muslim. What type of knowledge? That knowledge that you are required to fulfill your duties to Allah. Make sense? So it shows the importance of studying the fiqh of zakah. So he doesn't give his zakah. What happens? On the day of Qiyamah, his wealth will come in the form of a huge snake whose head will be full of poison and it will have two fangs. You know what fangs is, everyone? Yeah, the big teeth. Yeah, fangs. And what will happen? It will suffocate. It will tie him and it will suffocate him on the day of judgment. Then it will take a hold of his cheekbones and it will say, Ana maluka, ana kanzuka. I am your wealth, I am your treasure. Then the Prophet ﷺ recited the verse in the Quran where Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ يَبْخَلُونَ بِمَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ هُوَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ. That let not those who are miserly, who are stingy with what Allah gave them of His bounty think that it is good for them. Rather, it is evil for them. Allah says that which they were miserly with will soon suffocate on the day of judgment. It's referring to this incident. So subhanAllah, we can see from this hadith, the warning of one who does not give his zakah is so great, subhanAllah, that that his wealth will appear in the form of a huge snake and it is going to tie him and suffocate him. And it is going to say, I am your wealth. I am the thing that you used to hoard in this dunya. You used to be stingy with in this dunya. طيب. Moving on. Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran, and this is like not really to do with zakah itself, but generally to do with wealth. Is wealth a bad thing in Islam? So you can put this as a title. Is wealth bad Islamically? Is it a bad thing, brothers? Huh? If you say yes, then you have to leave all your jobs. Is it bad? Huh? Is it bad? Put your hand up if you say yes. Put your hand up if you know it's not bad. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Everyone likes money, huh? We love it, man. MashaAllah. طيب. So now the answer is, it's neither yes nor no. Yeah? The answer is, it depends. Yeah? Diplomatic answer. It depends. What does it depend on? How you treat that wealth. So now what is the concept of wealth in Islam? Allah Azza wa Jal has given us wealth so that we may look after ourselves and our families. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He talks about wealth. You can see in the Quran, He talks about wealth in a negative way as well as in a positive way. Allah refers to wealth in the Quran as khair, right? Goodness. But then Allah Azza wa Jal also talks about how wealth can destroy certain people as well. So it depends on how we treat our wealth, how we view our wealth, how we view wealth, the properties that we have, the wealth that we have, how we view it. So it depends on how we look and our perspective when it comes to money in our lives. So now, if a person has wealth, but that wealth, it distracts him from the remembrance of Allah, it distracts him from his focus in life, it takes him away from the deen, then that is going to be bad for him. Then that wealth is not good for him, right? And that's why Allah Azza wa Jal has obligated zakah, so that he reinstates his intention, he refocuses his intention, and he reanalyzes his perspective when it comes to wealth. Yeah? So that Allah Azza wa Jal is forcing everyone that you must give zakah. It's obligatory upon everyone. Because you have to remember, you have to reanalyze your relationship with wealth. If a person finds it very difficult to have a good relationship with money, then he must give zakah on time. When he gives zakah on time, zakah works in such a way that it trains you to understand that your wealth does not belong to you. Your wealth is actually given to you by Allah Azza wa Jal. That's why Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran, He says, أَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. Spend from that which we have given you. We have given you this wealth. In Surah Al-Hadid, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا جَعَلَكُمْ مُسْتَخْلَفِينَ فِيهِ. Spend from that which Allah has given you guardianship over. Meaning, your wealth is not yours. It belongs to Allah Azza wa Jal. It says that Allah Azza wa Jal has given you guardianship of that wealth. So that's why you have to spend in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal, and do not think that your wealth belongs to you. Rather, it belongs to Allah Azza wa Jal. So in your wealth, there is a right for the poor as well. Okay? As Allah says, وَفِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ. In their wealth, there is a right for the one who asks and the one who is deprived. Which is why you see, amongst the companions radiallahu anhum, we had two main categories of people when it came to wealth. You had the rich, the very rich. We can say three categories. The very rich, when it came to wealth. You had those companions that were, when it came to wealth, it was quite moderate. And then you had those companions who were very poor. Okay, so an example of a very rich Sahaba was Uthman radiallahu anhu. We spoke about him today after Fajr, when we were speaking about the Battle of Tabuk, that he himself prepared 1/3 of the army. Why? Because he was so wealthy, right? Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu was also a millionaire. Okay, very, very wealthy Sahabi. However, they had the correct perspective of wealth. What was their perspective? They understood that their wealth did not belong to them. They understood that their wealth ultimately belonged to Allah Azza wa Jal. And they did not let their wealth enter their hearts, which is why Allah Azza wa Jal gave them barakah in their wealth. Yeah? But it's very hard to do this. Wealth is such a thing, it's very sweet. Yeah? And when you taste that comfort, it's very easy for you to forget Allah. Which is why we have to be very, very careful with our wealth and how we treat our wealth. Which is why we have to discipline ourselves when it comes to wealth by giving zakah as well as giving sadaqah. Discipline yourself, even though you don't want to give it. And Allah knows human beings is attached to their wealth. Which is why in Surah Ali Imran, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. Important, if you are liable to receive zakah. Some people, they are quite shy, and understandably so. They don't like being known as people who are eligible for zakah, because it's embarrassing, right? Because you're exposing, the class, what class they fit in society. However, if you are eligible for zakah, then listen to this. They are not giving their money to you. They are giving your money to you. Yeah? They are simply fulfilling the right that you have over them. That's all it is. So this is like, because I speak to some people who are eligible for zakah, and they always tell me, I feel very embarrassed. I don't want anyone to know that I'm eligible for zakah, etc. And it takes a huge hit on their ego. And understandably so, anyone who's in that situation would feel the same. But something that will comfort them is this, that their wealth that they are receiving is actually their wealth. It is not the wealth of the person who's giving the zakah, right? So it's important that we understand this. So this is how we must view wealth in Islam. And this is a concept of wealth in Islam. Even, for example, the scholars of the past, you have some scholars who are very wealthy, very, very wealthy. We have this culture nowadays, especially in the Asian community, where an Imam Sahib, right, he must be on the lowest salary, okay, and he should be the biggest faqir in the society. Yeah, he should be out in those streets, you know. So if the Imam Sahib, mashallah, buys a new car, for example, so, oh, Imam Sahib, what's going on? You know, you meant to be driving a, you know, a Micra. You know, no offense to those people who got Micra. I had a Micra once upon a time as well. Okay, so I was fitting that standard once upon a time, right? So there's a misconception when it comes to people of religion that they must be deprived, they must be poor, they must be on the streets, you know, begging people. Okay, which is why this is another topic in and of itself, which is why we have the problems that we have today, subhanAllah, of the society. Because the people who are meant to be doing the work of deen, they can't. They're too busy trying to make ends meet. طيب? So anyway, that's another topic. But when we look in history, people of religion, you had two types again. You had those who were extremely wealthy and those who were not so wealthy. An example of those Sahaba, or sorry, those scholars that were extremely wealthy is Imam Malik, rahimahullah. Imam Malik was very wealthy. He was so wealthy that it is mentioned regarding him when he would come to Dars, when he would give a Dars, because he used to give Dars in Masjid Nabawi, right? In the Masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the clothes that he would wear at the end of the Dars, at the end of the day, he would take his thobe, whatever he was wearing, his shirt, his thobe off, and he would give it to one of his poor students. And they would say regarding him that you would never ever see him wearing the same clothes more than once, because he used to donate all of his clothes. Now this doesn't mean that at the end of today I'm going to give you my thobe. I'm not Imam Malik. Maybe one day, inshallah. Similarly, we have Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, the famous jurist. He was also a very wealthy merchant, and he was engaged in the textiles business, right? So he was involved in fabric, selling fabric, and he actually inherited his business from his father. So when he was in Iraq, okay, he was one of the most famous merchants when it came to the textiles industry, okay, in Iraq, in Kufa, right? And he also went to Baghdad as well. So even him, he was very wealthy, and it's mentioned regarding him, he would sponsor his students to study. Yeah, normally the biggest issue, I teach students full time who are training to become ulama, who are training to become imam, and I teach full-time students and they're studying the Sharia, etc. And one of the biggest complaints that all of these students have is wealth. I can't afford the fees, I can't afford, you know, the travel costs. You know, very expensive to travel on the tube. Okay, every year the prices, they go higher. You know, I need money, I need time to work, because they're studying full time. They don't have time to work. They may have a part-time job here and there, but they're always complaining about money. Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, with one of his students, his name was Imam Abu Yusuf. Imam Abu Yusuf. Imam Abu Yusuf, rahimahullah, later on he became a qadi. He was very poor, and he stopped coming to Dars one day. So Abu Hanifa, he went to his house and he knocked on his door, and his mother opened and said, how come your son is not coming to Dars anymore? What's happened? He said, oh, you know, he needs to work because we're poor, you know, he needs to provide for the family. He said, okay, how much do you need? He told me, these are my expenses. He said, I will cover all of your expenses. I want Abu Yusuf to attend Dars. So Abu Yusuf, rahimahullah, used to attend Dars, and he became a great faqih of his time. Subhanallah. Right? So this is another example of how another scholar, among the many scholars that were very wealthy in Islam, and it shows the concept of wealth in Islam. One day, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, well, I think it was Sufyan al-Thawri actually, Sufyan al-Thawri, rahimahullah. One of the two Sufyans, there's two Sufyans, two famous Sufyans, Sufyan ibn Uyayna and Sufyan al-Thawri. One of the two Sufyans, he was carrying wealth, a pouch of golden coins. So one man, you know, and we can understand from this that this culture of that the fact that people of religion should not have money has existed for a very long time. So he went to this sheikh, this imam, and he said that, oh imam, you know, what's going on? As in, why are you carrying so much wealth, so much money? You know, he's saying that you should be a person that should have no wealth. So Sufyan, he got very angry, yeah, and he said, oh foolish person, it is only blameworthy to have wealth if these coins was to enter my heart. So long as they're in my hand, it is not blameworthy to have wealth. Understand this? When money enters your heart and you love money, and unfortunately, my dear brothers and sisters, very, very unfortunate that we find our situation today that Muslims, despite Allah giving us clarity in the Quran, Muslims, yes, we are living in difficult times, but Muslims have made wealth the objective of life. Now, what I mean by that is, I'm not saying it is bad to work, nor am I saying it is bad to work overtime. All I'm saying is that we have made it the objective of our life, such that we are willing to sacrifice our deen for the sake of dunya. And this is where we need to draw the line. We must always prioritize our deen, because the one who gives you rizq, how can you disobey him? It doesn't make sense. You are seeking rizq by disobeying al-raziq, al-razaq. Doesn't make sense, right? If you truly want rizq, yes, you work, but at the same time, you uphold your duties to Allah Azza wa Jal, and this is how you will receive barakah in your wealth. Moving on, so this is a bit about the spiritual dimension of wealth, and there's a lot of reward for ones who spends in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how their wealth will be multiplied many times. You spend in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. Let's say you give zakah to a poor person. So long as that poor person now benefits due to your wealth, you are going to be getting the reward of that. If you give sadaqah to, for example, a masjid or to an orphanage, right? So long as that masjid is running, you are going to be getting reward. So you can imagine, subhanAllah, the great reward of spending in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now moving on to a bit more academic stuff. So this is where you need to start taking notes again. Who is zakah obligatory upon? This is the title. Who is zakah obligatory upon? Who must pay zakah? So there are certain conditions that make zakah fard upon a person. If you fulfill these conditions, then you have to pay zakah. Okay, so another way of explaining this is the conditions that make zakah obligatory. You can put this in brackets if you want further clarification. The conditions that make zakah obligatory. Condition number 1, Islam, meaning the person must be a Muslim, obviously. So, a disbeliever, he will not pay zakah. Why? He doesn't believe in Allah. You see, the Sharia does not address the non-Muslim in the sense when it comes to ahkam. Allah says, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, O you who believe, spend. O you who believe, give zakah. Yeah, establish prayer. So Islam. Number 2, freedom. Yeah, freedom. Now, freedom doesn't mean, I'm free to do whatever I want. I'm independent. I make my own decisions. Not that type of freedom. What does freedom mean? Yeah, he's not enslaved. Yeah, he's not in captivity. Okay, so he is free in the sense that he is not a slave. Okay. Number 3, intellect. Yeah, aql. Intellect. Now, aql doesn't mean that he must be clever. What does aql mean? Yeah, he's not crazy, basically. Yeah, he's sound-minded. He's got a sound mind. Okay. Number 4, maturity. Again, maturity doesn't mean that he acts mature. Maturity means that he should reach the age of puberty. Yeah, it's very important. Subhanallah. How many of our kids, subhanallah, they're at the age of puberty, right? They may be 15, 14, 15, 16 years old. They may have a part-time job. Let's say 16-year-old kid. Yeah, 16-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid, right? He's got a part-time job. He works at JD, let's say, right? And he's working on the weekends and he's earning money, saving money for university, right? It's very unfortunate that they don't know that they have to pay zakah, right? Because he fulfills all the conditions. You see? And parents should know this. Parents should be the one that are reminding them. It's part of their tarbiyah. Okay, very important. Moving on, which number is this? Number 5. This is the most important one. Complete ownership of the nisab. Nisab is a technical word which I will explain. Nisab with a sad. Yeah, if you want to spell it in English, Nisab. 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 Complete ownership of the nisab at the beginning and the end of an entire lunar year. At the beginning and end of an entire lunar year. Okay, so complete ownership of the nisab for basically one whole year, but not a year as in January till December. We're talking about a lunar year, yeah, so Islamic year basically. Okay. طيب. Now let's explain this nisab. This is the most important. It's very, very okay, very, very important. We understand what nisab is. If you don't understand nisab, yeah, nisab is the threshold, or you can say the minimum amount of wealth that you must own for zakah to be obligatory upon you. And you must have this minimum amount of wealth for one whole lunar year, one whole Islamic year. Threshold. If you have that amount or more for one whole lunar year, zakah becomes obligatory upon you if you meet all of the other conditions as well. Make sense? Now, what is this minimum amount we'll come to? It's important that you understand this. Now, another thing that I would like you to put is this nisab, this minimum amount, must be surplus to basic needs. Okay? This is another important point with regards to nisab. It must be surplus to your basic needs. What are basic needs? For example, rent, bills, groceries, okay, stuff like this. Basic needs. And we're going to clarify this further, inshallah, later on. Now, the key thing is, this is the next point now with regards to nisab. Fluctuation in the middle of the year, a fluctuation in your wealth. So if it goes up and down, because naturally your money is going to go up and down, right? Some months you're going to have more, some months you're going to have less. Fluctuation throughout the year does not matter. What matters is at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. Make sense? The only time it matters is when in the middle of the year your wealth reaches zero. Yeah? I.e. you have no wealth. So let's say something happened, an emergency happened, you had to pay, an expensive bill, okay, and because of that you had no money left. You went to zero or you went to an overdraft, okay, minus. This is when it does matter. Now, why does it matter? What happens here? Your zakah date will be reset. Let's write this down. I'll explain this later on. Your zakah date will be reset. Okay? Your zakah date will be reset. Now, I know there's a lot of questions going in your mind. Okay, but sabr, inshallah. We're going to explain everything bit by bit. We're going to be here for quite long, inshallah. So brace yourselves. Right. Now, when we're saying both points of the year, at the beginning of the year, end of the year, what does that mean? Does it mean that we have to look at Muharram, the first Islamic month, and Dhul Hijjah? What does it mean? Basically, every Muslim has a zakah date. Yeah, every Muslim has a zakah date upon which your zakah is due. You can write this as a title. How is my zakah date determined? How is my zakah date determined? Meaning, how do I know what my zakah date is? The answer to this question is the following. The first time you owned the nisab amount or more is when zakah date will be fixed. Now, brothers who have been working for, mashallah, 15, 20 years, I think, oh my God, my first payslip, Allahu Akbar. I can't remember. Don't worry, there's a solution for this, inshallah. The youngsters, yeah, if you've just started working recently or if you're going to work soon, yeah, important that you understand. The moment that you get your first salary, Let's say he received £1,000 as his first salary. He's never owned this much money in his life before. He's super excited. Yeah. So first people, what do they do? Youngsters, they go and spend it, splash the cash. They act as if they're millionaire, mashallah. Treat everyone to steaks. Okay. No. The first thing you should do is, okay, this is my wealth now. I've got this wealth in my bank accounts, right? I've received my first salary. What is my duty as a Muslim? Let me find out what is the Islamic date today. He's going to write down the Islamic date. For example, it is the 20th of Rabi'ul Awwal. 20th of Rabi'ul Awwal. Now that is going to be his zakah date, 20th of Rabi'ul Awwal. Now what he has to do is, he has to write down this date, 20th of Rabi'ul Awwal. The following year, yeah, so let's say, what is the Islamic year to this year right now? What is it? What year are we currently in? 1444 AH, right? 1444 AH. So let's say 20th Rabi'ul Awwal, 1444 AH. The following year, 20th of Rabi'ul Awwal, 1445 AH. On the 20th of Rabi'ul Awwal, he will check how much wealth he has. If it is above the nisab amount, not £1,000, the nisab amount, which I'm going to explain, then zakah is liable upon him. Does that make sense? So he has to check at both points of the year. 20th of Rabi'ul Awwal, 1444, and then 20th of Rabi'ul Awwal, 1445. Make sense? But the question remains, what if you don't know when you receive your first salary? When you first, it doesn't have to be salary, it could be a gift as well. Let's say your parents gave you a gift of £1,000, right? That's still in your ownership. It's not, people have this misconception. I'm only paying zakah when I start working. Ajib, I don't know where people get this from. What does that mean? As in, you can inherit £1 million and you say you can't give zakah, right? A person can give you £10,000 and you're telling me you're not allowed to, you can't give zakah. Is not obligatory upon you. Zakah is when you have ownership, not when you start working. Look at how we define zakah. Yeah, when you own the nisab amount, doesn't matter how you got it, whether it is working, whether it is a gift and inheritance, doesn't matter. Ownership is the key. Make sense? But then the question remains, I don't remember when I had the nisab amounts for the first time in my life, because we're talking 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, maybe more. So what do you do then? So now you will fix a zakah date for yourself. It could be as random as possible. Just fix a date. Usually people fix it in Ramadan because it's easy to remember. They will usually fix, for example, 27th of Ramadan. Yeah, this is usually when the charities are the most busy, because everyone's giving their zakah on that date. Yeah? Fix a date for yourself, a date that you will be able to remember. And make this intention that this is my zakah date now. So now every time when you calculate your zakah, you'll go by this date that you have fixed for yourself. Make sense? طيب. Now, when it comes to the nisab, okay, what is the nisab? Okay, what is the nisab? How much is the nisab? So we said that the nisab is the minimum amount of wealth that you must have, but what is this minimum amount? Yeah. Okay, so this was actually fixed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in various ahadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam fixed the nisab. Now, back in the day, they never had pounds, as you know. I'm sure you know, right? Back in the day, they never had pounds and riyals, Saudi riyals. Yeah, didn't exist. What existed? What was the monetary value then? Gold and silver, right? Dirham and dinar. Not the dirham that is in the Dubai dirhams. Yeah, we're talking about proper gold and silver coins. Okay, this is real wealth. Yeah, not the paper stuff that we use. That's not actually real wealth. The real wealth is the gold and silver. Okay, so this is how they used to. This was the main source of wealth. So based on that, the Prophet ﷺ fixed the following nisab amount. Write this down. With gold, it is 87.48 grams of gold. 87.48 grams of gold. And with silver, 612.36 grams of silver. 612.36. So once again, gold 87.48 and silver 612.36. Okay, this is the nisab according to the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. I.e., if a person has this amount of wealth, okay, or the monetary value is where it applies, because obviously we don't have gold and silver right now, as in it's not a form of currency. The form of currency is pounds and dollars and so on and so forth, right? So the monetary value we're going to look at. So we're going to see now how much is 87.48 grams of gold in today's money, and how much is 612.36 grams of today's money. In fact, we'll check it now. There is a very good website on a side note called National Zakaah Foundation. If you want to calculate your zakah, they've got a very good zakah calculator on their website, and it is run by scholars, and they've got a lot of very, very good resources. It's an excellent organization. Highly recommend it. National Zakah Foundation. So let's check on their website what is today's nisab. Yeah, what is today's nisab? So today's nisab, according to National Zakah Foundation, if you calculate it using gold, so 87, how much was it? 87.48, yes, is going to be 4,000. You can write this down. Bear this in mind, yeah. The nisab monetary value changes, because obviously the value of gold and silver changes every day. So you have to check the date that you're giving. Don't just write this down and say, okay, it is a fixed amount. No, no, no. Check the date that you're giving zakah. How much is the nisab? Understand? Because it fluctuates it can fluctuate quite drastically as well. So for gold, it is 4,491 pounds. 4,491 pounds and 22 pence is for gold. For silver, 385 pounds and 79 pence. Yeah, 385 pounds and 79 pence. Okay. And this is based on the gold price. Today's gold price is 51 pounds 34 pence per gram. Okay. And for gold, it is 0.63 pence per gram. Okay. 63 pence per gram. This is the price of gold and silver today. So based on today's value, this is how we are going to determine the nisab amount. So now, based on this information, let's give a scenario to really, inshallah, explain this properly. Let's say Mr. Zaid, yeah, we'll use Zaid. Anyone call Zaid here? No? Okay. So we'll make a guy called Zaid, right? Zaid, Mr. Zaid, he is 20 years old, okay, and he's just got his first job, let's say in hospital. Yeah, he's a doctor, okay, and he's a junior doctor, let's say, and he's training, and he gets his first pay, which is £1,500. Yeah, how much? Write this down, because I need you to. I'm going to ask you now to calculate it. Yeah, so Zaid, on the 10th of Ramadan, so let's say today's date, yeah, 10th of Ramadan, he receives his first paycheck, £1,500. He's never owned the nisab amount before. So what's his zakah date, everyone? 10th of Ramadan. Now what happens is, the following year, 1445 AH, on the 10th of Ramadan, he will check how much wealth he has. So let's say, write this date down now. So 20th Ramadan, 1445, he had £5,000. Yeah? How much? £5,000. Okay, we're using total figures just to make it easy, inshallah. £5,000. So now what does he have to do? On the 10th of Ramadan, he will calculate his zakah according to the £5,000 that he has on that day. Now, is £5,000 above the nisab? Yes, it is, right? Both gold and silver. Now, the question comes, when it comes to money, do we go by gold, the gold nisab, or the silver nisab? The scholars mention, most of the scholars give the fatwa that it is based on the silver nisab. Why silver? Because they say that so that the benefit can be more. If you do it by the silver, more people are going to be giving zakah. Even though it's going to be little amounts, but more people can fulfill the obligations of zakah, especially nowadays. and things are a bit difficult. طيب? So £5,000 is more than £335, right? So now what did he have to do? On the 10th of Ramadan 1445, he will see that he's got £5,000 in his bank account, and that's all he has. He's got no other money lying around in his car, in his wallet, in his jackets, nothing. Yeah, the only money that he's got is £5,000 in his bank account, nothing else, no more, no less. So now what does he do? He is going to calculate his zakah. Now how is he going to calculate it? Who can tell me? No minus nisab, no. He will see how much he's got. £5,000 is above the nisab, khalas. Yes, so he's going to first of all take away his basic necessities, all right, which again we're going to come to. But then what is the amount that he has to give? 2.5%, okay? So let's just say, for argument's sake, that after all of his basic necessities, he is left with £4,000. Now, £4,000, it is still above the nisab of silver, right? So now he is going to do this calculation: 4,000 divided by 2.5%, and whatever it is left with, that is the amount of zakah. So if we get our calculators out, someone get their calculator out very quickly. How much is that? 2.5% yet of 4,000. Oh, mathematicians. £100, yeah? So £100 is going to give zakah £100. Make sense? That is how zakah is calculated. These are on a very simple level. I've not included a lot of things. They're just for me to explain how nisab works and how zakah date works. Okay? Everyone got this? طيب. I'll give you a chance for questions later, inshallah. Right, moving on to the next discussion now. And that is that what are the zakatable assets? So you can put this as a subheading: zakatable assets. Do we have a charger, a Samsung charger? It works for this laptop. If this laptop dies, then we have to cancel the session. Zakatable assets, meaning what types of wealth do you have to give zakah on? Okay, number one, gold and silver. Because obviously gold and silver, even though it is not a currency, it is still valuable, right? If you have gold, if let's say your wife, okay, your wife has gold at home, she was to take it to a jewelry shop and sell it, a lot of money will come, depending on how much she's got. Let's say she's got 100 grams of gold. It's a lot of money. Are you? So gold and silver. That's too short. We need something that can, because I forgot my charger at home, unfortunately. So is it long? No. Oh, power bank. Okay, yeah, please, inshallah. Any little helps. طيب. So gold and silver. Number two, cash. This includes salaries, money in your bank account, any type of cash you have. Will that work for this? Is it? Okay, good, excellent. Alhamdulillah. Oh, yeah, let's see if it works first. Yeah, it will work. Inshallah. Yeah, alhamdulillah, working. Right. So gold and silver, number two was cash. Cash includes money in your bank account. Anything that comes in your bank account, yeah, whether it's a mate paying you for a meal that you paid for, and he says, yeah, I'll wire you the money, yeah, whether it is salaries, whether it is benefits, universal credits, any money that is coming in your ownership. It also includes money in your wallet, yeah, so that £10 that's lying around, okay, those pound coins that are lying around, people forget this, okay, money that you have lying around in your car, any cash that is in your ownership. Number three, something that we call receivables, i.e., money that people owe you. Money that people owe you. So you've given a loan to someone and they owe you money. Sometimes you will include that as well. Now there's details to this which we will explain. Okay? So now when it comes to money that people owe you, there are two types. Yeah, write this down. Number one, strong. Yeah, a strong likelihood, you can say. Strong likelihood. And number two, a weak likelihood. Yeah? I.e., how likely is it that you're going to receive that money that you have borrowed someone? Okay? So the ruling is, if you have given money to someone and the likelihood is that you will receive it at the date that you fixed, or you are going to receive, let's say you didn't fix a date, but you know that you are 100% going to receive it, yeah, then you will include that in your zakah calculation. Make sense? Why? Because the likelihood of you receiving that money is very high. Now, how are you going to judge that? You're going to judge that based on your relationship with the person, right? You're going to judge it based on the relationship with the person. If you know that this guy is good with money, you know him very well, you know that he's not going to run away with your money, he's going to give it back, then you will include it in your zakah calculation. Example of Zaid. Zaid had £5,000. He took these, and now he's left with how much did you say? £4,000. Now he's borrowed money over the whole year to people, and there is one guy that needs to pay him back still, and he owes him £2,000. Yeah, and he is a very close mate of his, very, very close mate, and he knows that he's definitely going to give me the money back. He's not the type of person that's going to run away. So the likelihood, is it strong or weak? Strong. So now what is he going to do? He's going to add it to his zakah calculation. So now that 4,000, you're going to put plus 2,000 equals 6,000 now. Make sense? If it is weak, meaning that you don't know, man, this guy, there's some people like that, yeah? You give them money, you give them money knowing that you're not going to receive that money back. There's certain people like this. You give them money, you say, yeah, I'm borrowing you this money, yeah, but you know deep down that this guy's not going to give it back, man. He's going to forget about it. We're just going to stop replying to your messages. He's going to block you on WhatsApp. Yeah. So weak likelihood. Then what will happen? And then zakah will not be, you will not include this amount in your zakah. Okay?
What if it surprised you in 2 months' time? What if it surprised you in 2 months' time?
If you've already paid your zakah, then that's different. Do you understand? So once zakah has been discharged, that's it. Now a new year has started. Now you'll include it in the new calculation the following year. Understand? طيب. Everyone got that? Yeah? Right, moving on now. What about business assets? Business assets. Yeah, business assets. How does business assets work? Because technically business assets are zakatable. They're part of zakatable assets, right? So now, how business assets work is, if you buy an item with the intention of reselling it, yeah, listen to this very carefully. This is how you define a business asset in fiqh. A business asset is a commodity, an item, a product that you purchased with the intention of reselling. Not that car that you bought for personal use and then you decide to sell it later on. Because you didn't buy with the intention of selling it or of making money from it. The reason why you bought the car is to use it for yourself, personal use. We're talking about, let's say you're engaged in buying and selling cars. Yeah? So what do? You go to the auction, you buy cars with the intention of making profit, of making money, yes? You buy mobile phones because that's your business. You're not buying it for personal use, you're buying it to sell it. So any commodity that you buy with the intention of selling it on is classified as a business asset. Does that make sense? So now what happens? with zakah. How does zakah fit into this? So again, when your zakah date comes, after including gold and silver, after including cash, money in bank accounts, etc., after including receivables, you will also include any business assets that you may have. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to have a registered business. It could be something, maybe something small that you're doing on the side. Maybe you bought 1, 2, 3 mobile phones that you're trying to sell on the side, a side hustle as they call it. Yeah, it includes that as well. Doesn't mean that you're officially running a business. Business asset is even one product that you buy with the intention of reselling it. That's a business asset now. Now you must include that in your zakah calculation. But then how do you include it in your zakah calculation? How does it work with products and commodity? So when it comes to commodities that are they're finished goods, yeah, so they're not in production, they're finished goods, you will look at the retail price for that particular product. Make sense? The retail price, the retail value of that particular product. So for example, a car. You will know the retail value. You can go to Auto Trader, type in the number plate, and it'll give you the retail value. That this is the value of this vehicle, right? You will include that in your zakah. So let's say it is £10,000. Now that £6,000 that Zaid had, plus £10,000. How much is it now? £16,000. Of assets that he has that are zakatable, after deducting his basic necessities. All right. If it is unfinished goods, give me an example of an unfinished good. No, unfinished. What does that mean? Unfinished goods. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So any good that is in production, basically. Yeah, any goods that are in production, they will be valued at the market value. Okay. So when it comes to finished goods, which is most of the products that people usually engage in nowadays, right? Finished goods, retail value, and unfinished goods, the market value. And this is how you're going to calculate your zakah. So let's say a person has a showroom. Okay, and he has, let's say, 15 cars, and he looks at the value, the retail value of every single car, and let's say the amount, it comes up to £100,000, right? £100,000. Now that £100,000 is going to be included in his zakah calculation. Does that make sense? Oh, yeah. Now the question comes up here, a common question that usually comes up here when it comes to business, is what about if you're in a partnership? Yeah, what about if you're in a partnership? With partnership, each partner is going to be responsible for his share of the business. Understand? So if you got 20% of the business, then you'll be responsible for your 20%. What usually happens is, for example, a scenario that's a real scenario that I had to deal with was there was a couple of brothers that were running a car showroom together, and how they did their shares was, one of them had like 5 cars that he owned, specific cars, and the other had 10 cars, and the other had another 10 cars. Yeah. So now what do they have to do? How do they calculate their zakah? Are they going to put it all together? No. So the guy that's got 5 cars, he's going to look at his 5 cars. The guy's got 10 cars, he's going to look at his 10 cars. So you have to look at your share of the business, and you will be responsible for paying zakah on your own share of the business. Make sense? But this is very important that we understand this. If you own something with the intention of selling it, then you include the commodity in your zakah. Okay? Very important. طيب. Number 1, jewelry besides gold and silver. Any jewelry that is not made of gold and silver. So if you have, for example, gold-plated jewelry, yeah, you don't include that. Even diamonds, yes. Okay. Okay. So as in gold-plated jewelry, don't say, oh yeah, it's very shiny. Yeah, doesn't matter. It's not gold. Number 2, personal items that you own. Personal items like, phone, car, watch, etc. Number 3, properties that are on lease. Yeah, properties that are on lease. Number 4, household appliances. So your sofa, don't say I need to do zakat on my sofa and everything. You're gonna have nothing left, Yafi. Yeah. You're gonna be liable for zakat. And lastly, electronic appliances. These are all non-zakatable assets. Okay. Now, with regards to properties on lease, what we mean by that is the property that is on lease. So let's say you got a property, you've given it on rent. How do you work out the zakat on that? You will work out the zakah on the money that you are receiving as rent. Yeah? You will work out zakah on the money that you receive on rent. This is if the property that you own is on lease. Does that make sense? This is what we mean by properties on lease. So you don't give the zakah on the value of the property. Does that make sense? That's why we're saying that it is a non-zakatable asset, meaning the property itself is a non-zakatable asset if the property is given on lease. Okay? Moving on now to zakah and debts. Zakah and debts. There's a whole topic that the scholars talk about. Zakah and debts. There are two types of debts, similar to receivables. Two types of debts. Number 1, strong debts. Yeah, strong debts, which is money that is owed to you. Okay. Money that is owed to you, which we've talked about already, but we'll mention it again. Money that is owed to you that you are confident will be repaid back. Yeah, this includes personal loans to family, to friends. We've talked about this already. Now, this does not include outstanding wages, outstanding dowry. Yeah, all you husbands who haven't paid your mahar yet. Okay. Okay, so you don't say, oh, I'm going to get paid. So let's say your zakah day is today and you're going to get paid tomorrow. So what if someone asks, do I include my pending wage? What's the answer? No. Why? Because it's not in your ownership, is it? Can you see? Can you see how important definitions are in fiqh? Definitions are very important because how did we define zakah? We said that ownership of wealth. Even though you're going to own it tomorrow, but technically you might not own it tomorrow. There could be a glitch in the system and your manager may call you and say, listen, it's going to be delayed by a couple of days. Can you see? So you don't do it based on a future event because you don't know, right? But what about if you are in debt now to other people? This is the question. Yeah. What if you owe money to others? Then the scholars will mention if it is an immediate debt, meaning that you have to pay the debt back immediately, it is imminent, then you will deduct it from your zakah calculation. So let's say you've borrowed £500 from your friend and your friend saying, listen, I need it back ASAP. Soon as you have money, I need it back straight away. Yeah. What you will do is now that's £16,000 that Zaid had. Make sure you follow the example of Zaid. Yeah, we're going to keep on going back to Zaid. Zaid now he owes £500 to Muhammad. Yeah. So now that's £16,000. You're going to minus 500. So now it's going to go back down to 15,500. So this is for what? Immediate debt. Debt that you have to pay back quickly, straight away. What about deferred debt? Debt that is deferred. This includes debt that you pay back in installments. Yeah? Debt that you pay back in an installment because let's say you've got a contract with a company. Yeah? This includes mortgage. Yeah, because mortgage is a debt that you're paying back in installments, right? This includes student loans. Yeah, a very common question that comes up amongst uni students. Student loans, which we're going to come to. We're going to talk about student loans in a bit more detail. But it includes any type of debt that you have where you are paying it back in installments. right? And it's a long-term debt, meaning you don't have to give the full amount straight away. There's an agreement in place that pay me £200 every month for the next 5 years, and that will cover your debt. How do you work out zakah? Is that deductible? Okay. So the answer is that you're not going to deduct the entire debt from your zakat from your zakah calculation. You will only deduct 1 year's worth of installments. Does that make sense? 1 year's worth of installments. Now, why 1 year? Who can tell me? Why 1 year? Because zakah is 1 year. Can you see? On an annual basis, right? So whatever is the yearly. So let's say you're paying £200 a month. That's your installments. So you're gonna times that by 12 months. That's how much? 2,400. You're gonna deduct £2,400. So let's say now Zaid, once again, how much money has Zaid got now after all of the calculations? 15,500. Now he's got another debt in place. Let's say he's paying back. Let's say he's got a mortgage. I'm not saying mortgages are halal, right? But let's say Zaid is, doesn't really care about halal haram, yeah. And he's got a mortgage, and he's paying. Let's say, for argument's sake, I know mortgages are not £200 a month, but let's say for argument's sake, it's £200 a month. Yeah, £200 a month he's paying back for his mortgage every single month. Now that £15,500, he's going to deduct how much? 2,400. What are we left with? MashaAllah. Mathematicians, £13,100. That's now how much money he's got left after all of the calculations. So it's gone from 5,000 to 4,000 to 15, 16,000 to now 13,100. Make sense? So this is how it works when it comes to debts. Now with student loans, if you are not currently paying back your student loan, you don't include that in your zakah calculation. So if you're not currently paying back the loan, then the student loan in your possession is not deducted from your zakatable amount. So you don't say that, I have to pay back a student loan of, how much is the student fees now? 9,000 still. Yeah. So let's say £27,000. Yeah. £27,000, 3-year degree. I've got £27,000 debt. Do I deduct 9,000, because we're doing it yearly, yeah? So do I deduct, let's say, £9,000 from my zakah calculation? The answer is, if you're not working and you're not in the process of paying back that money, right, then you will not deduct it. Makes sense? But if you have started working and you're in the process of now slowly paying it back, and I don't know because I've never gone to university, I've never taken out a student loan, but how much is the average when you pay back student loans every month, roughly? Huh? A month? Is it? Really? It depends on, I guess, it depends on how much it is, right? It depends on all of this, okay? Okay, so let's just say £200 is always a good figure, right? So let's say £200 you're paying back in your student loan, and you check this on your pay slips, yeah? £200 a month you're paying back on your student loan. So again, what you're going to do, you're going to times that by 12, £2,400. You're going to deduct another £2,400. Zaid has got a student loan and he's paying back his student loan, right? Another £2,400. So now how much are we left with? 13,100 take away 2,400. How much is that? Are you sure? 100%, yeah? Are you sure? Get your calculator down. I don't trust you guys, man. You're fasting. You guys are fasting, man. You say any figure that comes. Poor Zaid is trying to pay his zakah. He's asking us, 11,700. Yeah, 11,000. You're right. 11,700. It's 10,700. Yeah, just get your phone out and use the calculator. The calculator doesn't fast. Huh? 10,700? Yeah. Okay. 10,700. Sheikh Ajmal. Fasting. You're feeling the fast. Right. So we got how much left now? We got, so Zaid is on how much? £10,700. Tayyib. Does this make sense? So this is with regards to student loans. طيب. So now £10,700 Zaid has, after all of his calculations, he's calculated how much money he has, he's calculated business assets, he's calculated the debts that he owes people, he's also included receivables, money that is owed to him, and he's also included he's deducted his student loan. After all of that, he's left with how much? 10,700. Now, this is his final figure. He will now divide this by 2.5% on his zakah dates, and he will give that amount, however that amount is, he will give that much money. Okay? And that is going to be his zakah. Make sense? So how much is 10,700 divided by 2.5%, everyone? I'm enjoying this. Yeah.
1,570.
Huh?
1,570.
1,000 you pay 25 pounds. It's 200.
Yeah, Ikhwan. Yeah, Ikhwan. Why are you doing this to yourself? 10,700 divided by 2.5%. Just use your calculator. 267.5. Yeah, 267.5. So 267.5 is how much zakah he's going to give. So now what he will do, he will go on the charity website and he will give 267 pounds and 50 pence, okay, to whichever charity. Yes. No, no, because that's not a debt technically. See, it's not really a debt, right? That's more of like a contract for a service that you're receiving. It's different. طيب. Moving on now to recipients of zakah. Who can you give zakah to? Who can you give zakah to? I mentioned this in today's morning lecture, that in Surah At-Tawbah, Allah Azza wa Jal details who you can give zakah to. So if you want a reference, this is Surah Tawbah, verse number 60. Yeah, Surah Tawbah, verse number 60. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ. Yeah, the first category, the first recipient is fuqara, the poor people. وَالْمَسَاكِينَ, the destitute, the needy. Number 3, وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا, the administrators of zakah. Just list them down, I'll explain all of them inshallah. Number 4, وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ, reconciliation of the hearts. Again, I'll explain this. Reconciliations of the hearts. Number 5, وَفِي الرِّقَابِ, those in slavery. Number 6, وَالْغَارِمِينَ, those in debt. Number 7, وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, in the cause of Allah. Number 8, وَبِنِ السَّبِيلِ, the wayfarer, the traveler. Okay. These are the recipients of zakah. Now let's look at each one. First one was what? Fuqara, poor people. How do we define a poor person? Can a person turn around and say, "Oh, akhi, I'm poor, man," and he's got, mashallah, a couple of grand in his bank, and say, "Oh, akhi, miskin." No. A poor. See, this is why definitions. It's all about definitions, guys. Yeah, it's all about defining terms. If you don't define terms, there's going to be ambiguity, and people can just turn around and say, "I'm poor, I'm liable for zakah. Give me your zakah, everyone." Yeah, and you can basically scam the Muslim community. How do we define a faqir person? According to the fuqaha. So the jurists, they say that those who do not own zakatable assets, those who do not own zakatable assets, nor any surplus assets equating to the nisab amount. So a person who does not have the zakatable assets, he does not own that much amount, and he doesn't reach the nisab amount, then this person is classified as a faqir. Yeah, a poor person. Number 2, miskin. Miskin, destitute, refers to those whose earnings do not cover their basic needs. Those whose earnings do not cover their basic needs. Now, based on these definitions that we're giving, one thing that you realize is there are so many people at our doorstep that are actually liable for zakah. Yeah? There are so many people at our doorstep that are liable for zakah in the UK. Now, that organization I told you guys about, National Zakah Foundation. Yeah? One of their main things is they have a whole setup in place where people in the UK who are struggling, they register with them. And after all of the checks, obviously they've got loads of checks in place. After all of the checks, they will have a register of people that are liable for zakah in the UK. So now what you can do, actually, you can give your zakah to National Zakah Foundation, and they will distribute your zakah to the people that are living in this country who are in need, right? Who fit these requirements. And there are scholars that do all of the checks before they register these individuals. So you can check them out, inshallah. National Zakah Foundation. Number 3, those who distribute zakah. Now, what does this mean? Classically, in an Islamic government, in a Islamic government, the head of state would appoint officials who would go around and they would collect everyone's zakah. Yeah, just as how you have, for example, a debt collector. Yeah, so back in the day, you would have zakah collector. So even at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one day he sent a Sahabi to collect zakah from a particular tribe. So this man, now he went on behalf of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So on behalf of the government, the state, he went to this tribe to collect all of their zakah, and then he brought all of their zakah back. Make sense? These officials that have been officially employed by the government, so it's an official government position, an Islamic government position. Yeah, they are known as administrators of zakah. They can receive the zakah, right, for their wage. Does that make sense? So this is what Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran. وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا. Yeah, the administrators of zakah. So what do? They collect and they distribute the zakah. You can give your zakah to them as well. Obviously nowadays, because we don't have an Islamic government, etc., this doesn't really apply as much. Number 4, وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ, reconciliation of hearts. What does this mean? I.e., people who are inclined to embrace Islam. It's quite amazing, actually. People who are inclined to embrace, or even newcomers to Islam. Yeah, newcomers to Islam. You want to give them a gift. You want to look after them. Yeah, let's say, for example, there's a person who's just accepted Islam, and because of this, he's lost everything, because his family's abandoned him, right? Or let's say this is not the case. He's a newcomer to Islam, or he's inclined, he's very close to embracing Islam, and you want to show him goodness. So what do? You buy a gift for him. You can use your zakah money to buy gifts. Why? Because this falls under mu'allafati qulubuhum, reconciliation of hearts. Okay? So these types of people, they are eligible to zakah. Number 5, those who are enslaved. You can use your zakah money to free a slave. Okay, obviously this doesn't really apply today. Number 6, those who are in debt. Interesting now, this is. There are many people who are in debt. Does that mean everyone is now liable for zakah? No, it doesn't mean that. In particular, those whose liabilities, write this down, those whose liabilities exceed their zakatable and surplus assets. I.e., their debt is more than their assets. Okay, so let's say their zakatable and surplus assets is £16,000, but their debt is £50,000. Yeah? Their debt is £50,000. Now they are liable to receive zakah. And their zakah will be used to pay off their debt. Number 7, وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, in the cause of Allah. This in particular refers to those who are going out for jihad. Yeah, those who are going out for jihad, you can use your zakah money and spend in the people who are going out for jihad. But scholars, they also say that because it is a general term, fi sabilillah, yeah, in the path of Allah, they say that even sponsoring someone to become a hafiz or an alim, right? You can sponsor someone to become a hafiz or an alim using your zakah money. But I'm going to speak about this later on, inshallah, in a bit more detail. What do we actually mean by that? We'll come to that later on, inshallah. And lastly was what? Traveler, wayfarer, mashallah. Does that mean, you're going on a journey to Dubai? Saying, listen, brothers, I'm going holiday. Give me a zakah money. I'm a traveler. No, it doesn't mean this, right? What it means by wabni sabil, a wayfarer, a traveler, is a traveler who left his home for a lawful purpose, a halal purpose. This is the condition, not for a haram purpose. Yeah, not to meet someone that he shouldn't be meeting. Okay? And he does not have the money to return home. Yeah? So a wayfarer is that person who he went to travel for a halal purpose. Something happened on the way. Let's say he got robbed. Okay? Someone stole his wealth. And now he's got no money to return back home. Even if he is rich in his home country, doesn't matter. Even if he is rich in his home country. Let's say he can't access his wealth at all. He's very rich in the UK, but he's stuck, somewhere. And now he can't come back. He's stranded. So this person you can give your zakah to help him come back to his home destination. Okay? These are the 8 recipients of zakah. These are the people that you can give your zakah to. طيب. Who cannot receive zakah? Who are the people that cannot receive your zakah? Now this is very important, guys. You cannot give your zakah to what they call your roots. Your roots. I don't know what I mean by this. What does it mean? Roots. No, a bit more specific to that. Parents, children, grandchildren, grandparents, great-grandchildren, great-grandparents, great-great-grandchildren, great-great-grandparents, whoever's alive basically, as far as it goes upwards and as far as it goes downwards. Yeah? So your usul and your furu', you cannot give zakat to them. Okay? So parents, grandparents, forefathers, your offspring, you cannot give zakat to your children. You can't give zakat to your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and however many generations you witness. Okay? Similarly, you can't give zakat to your spouse as well. No. So spouse means both sides. Okay? In-laws you're allowed, yeah. In-laws you're allowed. So anyone else, you can give it to anyone under the sun, yeah, in your family, cousins, aunties. Oh, there's one auntie G that you remember from the village. Yeah, she phones you saying, oh, son, huh? Yeah. So you can give your zakat to your relatives. In fact, they have the most rights. Yeah, they have the most rights to your zakat. Brother and sister, yes, you can give brother and sister. Why? Why can you give brother and sister? Are they your roots? They're not your roots, right? So you can give it to your brother and sister. But why is it, who can tell me now, what is the logical reason behind this? Obviously, we have a hadith, yeah, that explain all of this. But from a logical perspective, not a textual perspective. Yes, exactly. Thank you very much. The money, if you give them zakah, the likelihood of you getting back that money is very high. So it's like you're giving it to yourself. You understand? So that's why you can't give it to your usul. You can't give it to your roots. Okay? Right. Last thing now, the conditions of the validity of zakah. Conditions of the validity of zakah. We've talked about the nisab, the fact that the nisab has to be in your ownership, can't be in the ownership of anyone else. Okay, it has to be in your ownership. This includes gifts, guys, as well. Yeah, anyone that gives you a gift, as soon as you take physical possession of that gift, you are the malik of that wealth. You are the owner of that wealth now, right? So ownership is key. But another thing that is a condition is niyyah, yeah, intention. Intention at the time of giving zakah. So when you are donating online, or when you are taking that cash out of your bank account to physically give it to a charity, okay, or to physically give it to a poor person, at the time of donating online, at the time of clicking donate, or at the time of typing in your card details online, or at the time of physically giving that cash to that poor person, you must have the intention that this is my zakah money that I am giving. Yeah, you can't just give any money and then later on saying, "Oh yeah, I gave that guy £500. I'll just include it in my zakah." You can't do that. From the outset, you must have the intention. Does that make sense? Because people give a lot of wealth for sadaqah, and then let's say a person, he's giving sadaqah, giving sadaqah, and then he remembers, "Oh yeah, it's my zakah date today. Oh, it's okay. I've given so much sadaqah this whole month. It can all be included." It doesn't work like that. At the time of giving his zakah, he must have what? The intention from the outset. So you can't make the intention later on. Okay? Yes. No. 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 It has to be Muslims. It has to be Muslims. Okay? Because the objective is to create a equality amongst the Muslims of the society. Understand? طيب. Now, a few common miscellaneous questions now, if you want to put this like a kind of a subheading. Miscellaneous questions that usually come up when it comes to zakah. I'm sure I've answered pretty much quite a lot of it already. The first question that usually comes up, or one of the many common questions that comes up, is, can you give zakah to a masjid? Yeah, write this down. Can you give zakah to a masjid, to an institution, to a madrasa, to a hospital, to an orphanage, to build a masjid for the running costs of an institution of some sorts? The answer is no. You cannot. Why? Because the condition is that the money that you are giving as zakah has to go in the hands of one of these people. It has to be a person, yeah, not an institution. There's a big difference. Now, what about going back to what we mentioned about sponsoring a hafiz or an alim? How does it work there? If you give it to an institution, a Islamic institution, and they are going to physically give that money to poor students in that institutions, then it's fine. Make sense? You can't give it to the institution for the running costs of the institution. Does that make sense? Yeah? Which is why you have to be very careful when giving your zakah. If you give zakah to sponsor a hafiz or an alim, you have to make sure that the poor student gets that money, and you have to also make sure that the students are actually eligible for zakah in the first place. Can you see? As in, they can't just take your zakah money and say, yeah, we've got poor students, but they don't even meet the criteria of being eligible to receive zakah. So you have to do your checks. Don't be, lazy when it comes to giving your zakah. You have to put all of the checks in place. Okay. Number two, second question, does a woman need to give zakah on her jewelry? Yes. Why? It's a zakatable asset, right? We mentioned right at the beginning, gold and silver is a zakatable assets. It holds value in every time and era. طيب? No, not platinum. Oh, it has to be gold and silver. Yeah. So jewelry, gold and silver jewelry, only gold and silver jewelry, she will have to give zakah on. طيب? Now, when it comes to liabilities, when it comes to deducting wealth when you are calculating your zakah, you have to deduct. We've talked about deducting debts. yeah, that are imminent, or debts that are long-term paid. We spoke about that. You also deduct your basic needs, we said earlier, yes? Basic needs. Now, what does it mean, basic needs? Who can explain this? Basic needs include what? Food and drink. Yeah, don't make stuff up. Yeah, don't say, oh, yeah, these are my basic needs. Yeah, can't make stuff up. Yeah, as in basic needs basically means that these are things that are required for your, yeah, for your survival and for you to live basically. Tayyib? Yeah, so it has to be your personal expenses on that day. Personal expenses on the day of the zakah, not a future date. So you can't say, I've got a future bill coming up in 2 weeks' time, so I'm gonna deduct that as well. No, it doesn't. You don't. It doesn't work like that. It has to be on the day. Make sense? طيب. Now, the last thing that we will talk about, inshallah, is with regards to a common question that comes up when it comes to zakah, and that is two things. Number one, investments. Yeah, investments and pensions. Investments and pensions. So if you have you've invested in a company, you've invested in a business, you have shares in a business, okay? Then how does zakah work on that? So there's two types of shares when it comes to intentions. When you purchase a share, there are two types of intentions that you have. Either you are purchasing that share with the intention of reselling that share. Yes? Sometimes people, they purchase the share with the intention of reselling that share when the prices of that share go up, yeah, so that they can make profits. The second type is you invest in a share with the intention of a long-term investment, so that you receive dividends. Yes? And many people do this, the second type. So the hukam, the zakah calculation, depending on the intention of why you bought the share, it will differ. So let's look at the first one. You bought a share with the intention of reselling. Okay, how will it work? How much zakah do you include? So the scholars, they mention that the entire shareholding is zakatable. The entire share that you own is zakatable. Why? Because your intention is to resell that entire share. Make sense? That's quite simple. And you do it at the current market rates. Whatever the current market rate is, you do it according to that. But then what about you've got a share as a long-term investment so that you receive dividends? What you have to do there is zakah will only be due on the net zakatable assets of the company. Yeah, so you look at all of the zakatable assets of the company. Whatever the net zakatable assets of the company is, you will give zakah on. Now, how do you find that out? Usually, they say that this can be calculated using the company's annual balance sheet. So you have to ask for the company's annual balance sheet, and on that, they will have all of the details on there. And then based on that, you look at all of the assets of the company, and then based on that, you'll be able to work out how much zakah you need to give. That makes sense? So this is with regards to when you have shares, when you have investments in companies. What about pensions? Pension schemes. There are many different types of pension schemes, right? There's only one type of pension scheme that you have to pay zakat on. Write this down so that you know, and check what type of scheme you're on. If you are receiving, if you are on a pension scheme, make sure you check what type of pension scheme you're on. Defined contribution schemes. Yeah, defined contribution schemes. They are the only scheme that are zakatable. Why? Why not other ones? Because with defined contribution schemes, you have ownership of that money, and it also has the ability to grow. Okay, so because of that, with that particular pension scheme, you will include that in your zakah calculation. Okay, all of the other schemes that you have, so state pensions, defined benefit schemes, care schemes, final salary schemes, all of these are not zakatable. Okay, because you don't have ownership of the money. Can you see now how it's constantly going back to the definition that we gave? Ownership. Okay. Now, the last discussion inshallah, before we conclude, is regarding Zakatul Fitr. Yeah, Zakatul Fitr. Something which is connected to Ramadan. Sadaqatul Fitr, Zakatul Fitr, Fitrana, as some people call it. Okay. Sadaqatul Fitr is also very, very important, even though it is not zakah per se. It is connected to zakah in the sense that it is obligatory for some people. Now, first of all, let's look at the legislation of Sadaqatul Fitr. It's very important because it's coming up. Yeah, people have to give their Sadaqatul Fitr soon, so you need to know the hukm and the rulings behind Sadaqatul Fitr. There is a hadith narrated, recorded in Abu Dawood on the authority of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, where he says, فرض رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم زكاة الفطر طهرة للصائم من اللغو والرفث وطعمة للمساكين من أداها قبل الصلاة في زكاة مقبولة ومن أداها فهي زكاة مقبولة ومن أداها بعد الصلاة فهي صدقة من الصدقات. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he made zakatul fitr obligatory for two reasons he mentions. طهرة للصائم, as a purification for the fasting person. Why? Because all of the mistakes that he made in the month of Ramadan, in his fasting, there may be certain things, certain sins that he did while he was fasting. It could even be that there were certain defects in his fasting that could affect the acceptability of the fasting. Sadaqatul Fitr acts as a purification. The second reason is tu'matan lil masakin, to feed the poor people so that they also enjoy the season of Eid. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever fulfills it before the Eid Salah, then it is an accepted zakah. And whoever fulfills it after the Salah, then it is simply a charity. What do we learn from this? When do you give your Sadaqatul Fitr? Before the Salah. Very, very important. Especially if your Sadaqatul Fitr is going abroad. Don't wait till the day of Eid to give your Sadaqatul Fitr. Right? You have to give it before the day of Eid. The further the better, because the chances of the poor people getting your Sadaqatul Fitr is very high then. You see, they should have that Sadaqatul Fitr on the day of Eid. Make sense? Very, very important. So we learn the objectives of Sadaqatul Fitr from this hadith. Now, when it comes to the conditions of Sadaqatul Fitr, the same conditions apply as Zakah. Exact same conditions, ownership of Nisab included, right? So if you have the ownership of the Nisab, the only difference is now with Zakah, you have to wait how long? 1 year. One whole lunar year. But with Sadaqatul Fitr, if you have the Nisab amount on the day of Eid, yeah, so if you anticipate that on the day of Eid, you know that you are going to have the Zakah amount, or sorry, the Nisab amount, then you will go Sadaqatul Fitr. Okay? And obviously surplus to basic needs as well, bearing that in mind. All right? Now, if you fulfill these conditions, then you have to give your Sadaqatul Fitr before the Salah. You also have to give it on behalf of your children. Okay? Very, very important. You also have to give it on behalf of your children. Right? It's also permissible to give it on behalf of your wife voluntarily. However, you must let them know. They must be aware of this. Very important. You shouldn't do it behind their back that they don't know about it. They should know that you have given Sadaqatul Fitr on their behalf. The key thing though is it must reach the needy recipients in time for Eid Salah. It's very, very important. It must reach the needy in time for Eid Salah, which is why we're saying try to do it as advanced as possible when it comes to Sadaqatul Fitr. All right. Again, niyyah is required. Yeah, the niyyah should be that you are giving your Sadaqatul Fitr as a means of purification for you. And another important niyyah that you should have is that you are transferring complete ownership of the money to the recipient. Yeah. It's not like, you're giving half of that wealth to the recipient and you still got a share in it. No. Whole commodity is being given to the poor. Now, how much is Sadaqatul Fitr? Yeah? How much is Sadaqatul Fitr? The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, back in the day, they never used to have pounds and dollars, right? They used to physically give sadaqatul fitr to the poor, and the calculation was according to wheat, barley, and dates. Wheat, barley, and dates. Okay, and they used to use a measurement called sa'. Yeah, sad alif ain. Sa'. Sa' is a measurement. So according to one hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that you should give half a sa' of wheat. Half a sa' of wheat. And if you can't do that, then you can give one sa' barley or dates. Yeah, barley or dates. Now, obviously, nowadays we don't give wheat and barley and dates to people. A sadaqah, we give money, right? So what we have to do now is we have to calculate how much is half a sa', how much is one sa'. One sa' equates to, write this down, one sa' equates to 3.25 kilograms. How much? 3.25 kilograms. Right? 3.25 kilograms. Okay? So now you will have to work out the value of barley, dates, wheat, according to this measurement that we have given. Half a sa' of wheat or one sa' of barley or dates. Now, when I was writing these notes that I've got in front of me are a few years old. So don't take these numbers. I'm just giving you examples. Prices have changed now, as well. Right? This was from, I think, 2019. So half a sa' of wheat back then was approximately £3.73 per person. Okay. One sa' of barley was approximately £3.75 per person. One sa' of majul dates, yeah, £29. Why? Because majul dates are expensive. Yeah. Obviously, most masajid, when they say, £5, brothers, yeah, they're going by wheat and barley. Yeah. I don't think there's a single masjid in the entire UK that does. Maybe we should do a Sa'id. Next Fitrana, yeah, we'll charge everyone £70, inshallah. Naam. And if they start complaining, say, we're doing it according to Ajwa dates. Yeah, we're doing it according to Ajwa dates. So Majul dates, £29, 16 pence per person. One sa' of Safawi dates, £44, 55 pence per person. And one sa' of Ajwa dates, £64, 74 pence per person. Can you see? So even though masjids will say, okay, the fitrana or the sadaqatul fitr this year is going to be £4, £5, right? But we can see that it depends. It actually depends on what are they calculating it by. Now, the reason why all masjids do it according to wheat and barley is to make it easy for people, right? Because a lot of people, you do according to ajwa, yeah, the brother's not going to have Eid, man. Yeah, you're going to make him skip the day of Eid. Can you see? He's going to have no money left. Kids will have to have, fruits on the day of Eid, even though they want nice meat and stuff like that. You can't take them out. You can't treat them to gifts, nothing. Yeah, it's all gone. Can you see? That's why we do it according to make it easier for the people. Okay? But if a person, Allah Azza wa Jalla has granted him a lot of wealth, the scholars mention this, if you have a lot of wealth, and deep down you know that if you got a lot of wealth, yeah? If you have a lot of wealth, if you are, mashallah, yeah, comfortable when it comes to your finances, you should try to give the most when it comes to sadaqatul fitr. Why? Because you're not going to feel it as much. And furthermore, the poor person is going to benefit greatly from that money. So if you are a millionaire, what's £64, man? Don't be stingy. Yeah, £64. Just imagine the effect that I have on a poor child, on a poor person who is deprived of all of the basic necessities of life. You see? So this is with regards to Sadaqatul Fitr, and the recipients of Sadaqatul Fitr is the same as the recipients of Zakah. So this is a quick breakdown of the rulings of Zakah, inshallah ta'ala. I hope I have gone through everything and answered most of your questions, inshallah. Does anyone have any specific questions? Don't ask questions that I've already addressed. If you ask questions that I've already addressed, I'm going to say, look at the recording. Now, yeah. Yes. So how it works with missed zakat, yeah, missed zakat payments. You can read more on this on the National Zakat Foundation. They've got some really good articles on this. But basically, that's what you have to do. You have to basically calculate how many years of zakat you missed, right? And based on that, you will give your zakat. Okay. And if there's obviously you look at your bank statements, etc., for those previous years, if possible, and then you have to give an approximate amount. And the scholars mentioned you should try to give a bit extra, okay, just to be on the safe side. And this is generally speaking for everyone. When you're giving your zakah, don't give it to the penny, right? Don't give it to the penny. Usually, what you should try and do is give £5, £10 extra, just in case you may have missed something in your zakah calculation. Does that make sense? Now, so it depends as in how much you own. It's all to do with ownership. Can you see? So if you split it, if you got £100 shared between you, and you have an agreement that you have £30 is yours and £70 is mine, then you're going to do according to that. Can you see? Oh, distribute. You want to give it to more than one person? Yeah, you can give it to more than one. Not an issue. So, as many people as you want to. So if you got £100 and your zakah is £100, you have to give £100 for your zakah. You can give £10 to 10 people, or you can give £100 to one person. Make sense? Yes, at the back.
Sorry, if someone doesn't have a house back home and then he wants him money to buy a house, that money he have in the bank, he has to take it. Yeah?
Yes, of course, because that's money that he's accumulating. Can you see? Now.
You mentioned in regards to businesses,
Yep.
assets. What about money that's in businesses? You know, some business owners, they may not necessarily take salary.
But isn't that's where investment comes in, no?
No, it's not investment actually. I have
Oh,
a question.
you're talking about, okay, so you're talking about, let's say you've got a business and then you've got your business bank account. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, so you include that as well. So as part of your business assets, it's not just commodities, it's also cash as well. So let's say you've got £50,000 in your business bank account. You will include that in your zakat amounts after deducting all of the wages, etc. You see? So the deductor will still apply. You still deduct all of the stuff. Yes?
Can you give zakat throughout the year? And mine say when it comes to the financial year.
So throughout the, what do you mean by throughout the year?
So
Like
for
installments?
for argument's sake, for argument's sake, someone who's poor and they needed money.
Okay, so you say you give zakat early.
Yeah, give your zakat early, and
Yeah.
then obviously when it comes to the final year, the
Yeah.
actual date of zakat,
Yeah.
can you minus that off that zakat?
Yeah, so you can give your zakat early. Yeah, you can give it all of it at that particular day, whatever that day may be. Or you can do what you said. You can give partially. You give part of the zakat, okay, on that day, and then you can give the rest on your actual zakat date, inshallah. Now,
In terms of gold and silver, they have to pay zakat on. Is it the value of just the pure gold and just the pure silver?
yes. So what you have to do, like women who have gold and silver, and men who have silver, what they'll have to do is they'll have to go to a jewelry shop, and what they'll have to do is they'll have to weigh how much silver and gold they have. Okay? They'll have to weigh how much gold and silver they have, and they will include that when calculating zakat. Now, there's one thing I want to show everyone that would make your life very, very easy, inshallah. You don't need to worry about knowing all of the details. Yeah? So, if you go to National Zakat Foundation, I'm just going to show you on my laptop, inshallah. Okay, National Zakat Foundation. And you go to calculate your zakah. Okay, so right, so look here. I don't know how well you can see it, but basically it asks you various questions, right? What I own. That's the first thing it's going to ask you. So over here, you will write down, or you will click that, okay, I own cash, I own money owed to me, there's money that people owe me. gold and silver, shares, okay, pensions, business assets, etc. Now, if you go down, and if you want, you can bring this up in on your devices, inshallah, just so you can follow me. And then what I owe other people. So over here, you'll have, for example, mortgages, yeah, personal loans, credit card, utility bills, etc., overdrafts, right? Once you've done that, it takes you to another page. Okay, so let's say I'm going to put down utility bills. I'm going to put down cash. I own cash. I own money, shares, business assets. Yeah. So now it will ask you how much cash in hand do you have. Yeah. So let's put down £500 cash in hand. Cash in bank accounts. Let's just say £13,000. Inshallah. One day. Now, then you go to money owed to me. Yeah, money owed to me. So how much loan have you given out? So let's say you've given out £2,000 of loan. Okay, and like that, it asks you all these questions. It goes to shares. It will ask you how much pounds worth of shares have you bought exclusively to resell for capital gains. And then how much pounds you have for shares that have been bought for any other reason. They will ask you how much assets you have, business assets. So that's where, coming to your question, with regards to business assets, you will write down the cash, you will write down receivables, you will write down stock, okay, for business assets. Then money you owe people, yeah, liabilities, deductibles, so you will include your utility bills, any other debts that you have. After doing all of that, yeah, you press continue, and then it will give you your final zakah amount. Okay, that is how much zakah you have to pay. And on the same website you can pay the zakah as well. So it's very, very easy. Now it's very easy. So you don't need to know all of the minute details. It does everything for you. So even for example with gold and silver, let's say you've got gold and silver, yeah? So I'm going to include gold and silver as the items that I own. Now if I scroll down, it will ask me how much grams of gold. If I don't know the amount, the value, it will ask you to write down the weight of gold. So let's say you weigh the weight of gold, and then let's say you've got 50 grams of gold, and silver, you've got, let's say, 80 grams of silver. Yeah, 80 grams of silver. So you will include that, and then that will be added onto your calculation. Makes sense? So they have all of this stuff in place already to calculate how much gold is worth as of today. And then based on that, you will include it in your zakah calculation. Yeah.
Within the song, obviously calculate according to silver. Obviously, majority of the time you're going to pay using the cash part.
Yeah.
What if your assets taking away the zakat equals more than you have in cash?
Give me an example.
So let's, because it can happen with business people, for example.
Yeah.
So let's say you have, what was it, the 300 and something pound in cash, and
Yeah.
everything else you've invested into businesses. Like let's say you own a fleet of 100 cars, and then by the time you take away the 2% from that, it's more than the £300. Then you.
I'll have to get back to on that one. Inshallah. Can you get
Can I
back?
have a couple of questions, please?
Yeah.
So defined contribution for the pension, like my company put like 10%, I personally put 5%, but I can't withdraw that money until I'm 55. So you're saying that when the
still have
day
to
comes,
include it.
I still need to include that amount?
Yeah, the reason is, even though you don't have technically access to it, you are still technically the owner of it. So it's all down to ownership.
Okay, my second question is, for example, if a mother has the goal, can I pay the zakat on our behalf? Or it has to come from our own
It
money?
should come from her own money, ideally. Yeah, because it defeats the whole spirit of zakah. Yeah, because zakah is to purify the wealth of the person that is giving zakah. So
Or can I give her the
you can
money?
give it. I think it'll be valid if you give it on her behalf, if she's happy with that.
Yeah.
But if you can give it from her wealth, it's better, right? And if you don't, if she doesn't have any money, then as in what you can do is you can sell the jewelry, right? And give the zakat in that way.
So no, can I give her the money so that she make
Oh,
her
yeah,
the
yeah.
owner
Yeah.
and she pay?
Yeah, that's fine. No issue with that. Yes.
You mentioned earlier that on the date of your zakat, you have to fix how much zakat you should give out, and then after that, you can't say that, okay, I give sadaqah, and that could be also. But obviously, you try as much as you can to calculate. But if after that, if you give sadaqah, an intention that if I did a mistake or if I
No, so, yeah, I understand your
miscalculated,
question. So-
could be counted.
No. So that's what I'm saying. On the day that you're giving your zakah, try to give extra. Yeah, for this reason. So say for example, you have to give 450 pounds of zakah, give 460 pounds or 470 pounds.
Alright.
So what happens, for argument's sake, if that 450, for argument's sake, you did 400 and 450 you give it, and it was still not enough, for argument's sake.
As in that's something that.
Throughout the year, for argument's sake, I give £10 every week.
Yeah.
As zakat.
No. So it has to be a fixed date, innit? As in you have to wait, because the reason why you have to wait the whole year is so that to show that you're in a comfortable financial position, basically. Do you understand? But that's why we're saying that try to give extra. Now, if still after giving extra you still fall short, then that's why you have to ask Allah Azza wa Jalla for forgiveness. Innit? That's why istighfar, all that comes in. Yes.
Of course, you should that nowadays there is no administrator for zakat.
Mm.
For example, if you send money back home, there's a person who takes time and goes somewhere to take the money and just distribute it. So can he be accounted as a Amalin? Can he be paid something?
As in, if he is poor, then that's different. But what we mean by administrator of zakat is, this is my understanding, Wallahu a'lam, but what it means by administrator of zakat is someone who's been officially employed by the Islamic government. Yeah, so not people who are working for third parties, and they're doing it on a private basis. Do you understand? Wallahu a'lam. As in, this is how I understand it. We're gonna have to. What time is it? 5 o'clock. I need to prepare for Taraweeh, so we're gonna have to cut it, inshallah. Otherwise, the questions are gonna go on and on and on. Yeah.
Sorry.
Let me go to someone who hasn't asked a question. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, you regarding this question about giving extra. So is 2.5% the minimum?
The minimum amount, yes.
So you can give more than that.
You give more, as in if your zakah has been covered, anything extra will be counted as sadaqah anyway. You understand? So you're not losing out basically by doing more.
Sorry. When you say people, if they send abroad, for example, it's, zakat is like £100, but obviously this will have some expenses like commission to transfer. and
Yeah,
all
so you
these
have to work that out. You have to work it out and ensure that it is still that amount that you calculated initially. Understand? Now. Yes.
Sorry.
Huh? Okay, where's it gone?
Long time investment is share. He said, do I need to pay for dividend? Like I made a share, I got a share for long time investment.
Yeah.
So I'm getting I received last year's dividend, as example, £10,000. So I kept it for whole year. I need to pay for that.
Yeah.
I got recently, within 3 months ago, I got another share came in, another 10,000. Do I need to add this 10,000 or I need to wait this 10,000 for next year?
You have to wait until your zakah date comes.
Zakat.
Yeah. So it has to be on your zakah date how much?
Zakat date time. It comes within Zakat date time.
Yeah.
I need to add that.
Yeah. So,
And last question about the gold, my wife, she's got no income. So she need to pay or do I need to pay behalf of her?
there's two options. You can pay on behalf of her if you're a good husband.
If I refuse to pay. Don't gold. I'm buying the gold and plus I'm going to pay you your zakat as well.
At least the month of Ramadan. Yeah.
No, honestly, who's liable?
She's liable.
Okay.
She's. You're so relieved, mashallah.
Can you clarify the deductions when you calculate your zakah? Well, you will calculate your mortgage for the whole year and deduct it. So the other expenses for the whole year, do you deduct
No.
the whole year or just
You only deduct it of the day. The day